I'm not saying I'm going to win you money, but I do. I just freaking started this. It already sucks, but I'm not saying I'm going to win you money, but I have ways I can help you lose less money on this episode of the Scho-Zone. All right, everybody, welcome to the Scho-Zone. It's your host, Ryan Schofield. I'm a little rough on the opening there. That's what happens. I do it live. I do it cold. And I must tell you, I'm absolutely exhausted. If you've read the description of this show, I'm also a sales guy who's, partially going through his midlife crisis is kind of the genesis of this show. And that's why I have a YouTube channel at 39 years old. But so be it. I work in retail sales, and the Labor Day weekend is a bit of a rough one. But that's all behind me. I've got the next 4 days up coming off. I'll be able to enjoy some nice rest and relaxation. And then that's going to be it for all the fun for a while for me, because I am going to be done with doing all my little baseball trip traveling. As you can see, if you are watching or if you tune in later on, you'll see all the stadiums that I've been to this year. And I've got quite a few more to go to knock down all 30 of them, but that's been part of the experience that's brought some of you to here. And if you enjoy that, I'll be providing some content in San Francisco and in Oakland. But let's face it, baseball, it's fighting an uphill battle. I love it. But pretty soon we're getting to the granddaddy of them all, and that is the National Football League. I'm actually, if I'm pretending to be some kind of media member, I obviously have to refer to it as the National Football League. But the NFL, it's king, and let's just call it what it is. It's mostly for the betting. This is something that I made my entire sports management degree that I kind of don't have, actually, all dependent on me doing a research study based on fantasy football and sports and how much of a vested interest that we have in it. Trust me when I tell you, this is the way I can tell you how popular the NFL is because of gambling. It was always the only real acceptable thing to gamble on, I would say. People would, March Madness would also go into there. Up until a couple of years ago, until gambling became legalized in most states, people looked at you a certain way when you told them that you bet on baseball, or if you bet on hockey or soccer, even that, you always got a little judgment there. NFL, you kind of got to pass on because some people, consider playing a parlay card gambling. Some people having the pick'em pools that they play at the office to be gambling. Many people, fantasy football was always their big thing. Me, I'm officially retired. We can go down that road at some time. But the actual act of gambling on football, and you can see it coming a mile away right now. If you have any of the major sports books, which I have several of them on my phone, they're just baiting you in there, getting you slowly ready to go on for the season. There's going to be a lot of gifts out there, I'll say, in the first week. That's just all just to build up a habit. It's kind of like how a crack dealer giving you your first hit of crack for free, because then they've got you for a very, very long time. NFL season will be starting on Thursday. So this will be the last chance I have to record till then, because Thursday is going to be an action-packed day where I probably won't be able to get anything out to you until, well, I'll be doing some live stuff throughout that time, I should say, because Wednesday I'll be going to San Francisco. I'll be traveling most of the day, and a lot of that will be in the air. I might take some videos along the way, post a little compilation now that I've gotten a little better at the edits for that, and we'll see what goes on there. That's enough of the house cleaning business as to what's going on in the Scho-Zone. I'm going to talk about what I came here to talk about, which is betting in the NFL. So the thumbnail that you have there, that is from a pick'em pool that I was in last year. That was picking against the spread, one of the DraftKings contests. That's my handle on DraftKings, by the way. So if you want to invite me into any of your degenerate families you have on there, or maybe I'll get a Scho-Zone gambling group involved on there at some point if we get more following on there, which, again, if you are following, tell somebody else, tell them just to click subscribe. Makes a ginger happy. It doesn't cost you anything. It's a real quick, simple thing to do. But I'd like to think that if I'm as good as I say I am over the next couple months, there will be some benefits that can be taken from watching me on a regular basis. I want to start off by saying I don't even really concern myself with NFL off seasons so much. I think that people care way too much about these off seasons, and football in general is a sport to me that people care the most about and know the actual least about. Now, because people are so invested with their emotions in football, it makes them think that they know everything. But we all know that people that think with their emotions are irrational, and irrational is not necessarily a great thing when it comes to betting and trying to make money. So I'm going to use the upcoming game on Thursday as an example of one of the biggest pitfalls here. I don't have many picks for you to tell you how to make money this year. I'm going to tell you what I know to be ways from mistakes I have made in the past that can help you to avoid money. Number one being that we have coming up a nationally televised game, the season opener, first game of the season. You do not need to bet on that game. You do not have to. Nobody makes you do it. That's the very, very important to point out there. Also, I will say that if you do want to have a bet on this game, I would say that there is no extra bonus points. There is no rewards to betting on the game before it starts versus now the advantages that we have with the modern betting apps and betting while the game is going on. Because we don't really even know, and I've been cautioning to people this for most of the year, we don't even know what football is really going to look like this year. Did we really, I mean, I don't even recall, not that I really channel surf a lot, but did anyone really watch preseason games? Did anyone actually see did any really good players play in them? I don't really know. I'm asking that out loud, but I know that most of the stuff that I follow, no one had many grand takeaways. To be honest with you, it's really, really depressing for me that the stuff that I do listen to as a 39-year-old man, it is mostly now 20 somethings who I just think that our understanding of football is so much different because everything to them looks through on a numbers basis. All football players are amazing athletes and all of them are good. I think that too much now people are evaluated on how they play as a Madden player and how they play as a fantasy football player. And just name recognition kind of carries more weight than overall talents. When I don't think enough people understand that in football, people's are just kind of functions of a system. Yes, some players you can build systems around, and that might be some of the differences. But for the most part, the way the NFL is constructed and the way that the talent is constructed, there's a lot of guys that operates, and there's this much between the best and the worst. There's your outliers on the other sides of them. But for the most part, everybody, it just all comes down to random chance and a couple of plays that change a game. That being said, we're going into the season opener with the defending Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the team seeking revenge, I guess you would call that, the best team in the AFC all regular season last season, the team that lost home field, on their home field in the AFC Championship, the Baltimore Ravens. I believe the line in that game is either 2.5 or 3.5. It doesn't matter to me at this point because I do not have a bet going into this game. Now, without having seen both teams and seeing how they're firing, I am gonna probably. There's just nothing. I don't get any paid anymore betting the game before it starts than I do after the game starts. And that's a good thing to kind of consider, that if a game is on TV and you don't have a strong lean on it, but you plan on watching it, watch it very, very closely. And in your head, kind of draw up scenarios that you might think are opportunities for you. Say that, you're watching the game flow, where this is always something I point out. If you're watching football, the way to watch it is you need to focus on the line of scrimmage, okay? If the line of scrimmage is on the defensive and offensive sides is continuously moving one way more so than the other, or it seems that a team is having problems protecting or a team is having problems holding the line of scrimmage on defense, that is valuable information to consider going forward. The other thing I would kind of consider is that we do have I have just got distracted here. I have a fucking mouse in my place. And here's the thing: I don't even mind. Like he's a nice looking guy. He's honestly he's not dirty or anything. I don't know how he gets maneuvers in and around. I mean, he's going under my fridge, I guess, which that's kind of a little dangerous. I don't know where he's getting anything to eat from because I really don't keep much food in my place. But I just wish the thing would let me give him a place to yeah, I could give him a cage. I'd actually take care of him or whatever. He doesn't bother me. I don't see any mouse shit anywhere. If it is, it's underneath my fridge. But yeah, he's just kind of popped out for a second. He's timid of me because we made eye contact the other day. I once killed a mouse with a lacrosse stick a long time ago. I feel bad about that one. I could probably do the same to this thing if I really, really wanted to, but I don't have the need to kill him. I just want him, he wasn't invited in here. That's kind of where I'm going at. So I want to give him his opportunity out of here. but his days may be numbered because, yeah, side rants continue. So have these scenarios in your head in a game. And I will also say that too, is that on the in game is where you have the ability to actually beat the book a little better. And let me describe that in an example at some point in time. But my general consensus, and this will kind of combine a little bit of betting tips that I have, is that the Ravens are probably the more motivated team. The Ravens, I think, have more they've been looking at this game and this game alone, I think, for a very, very long time because of the feeling that, they lost on their home field there. The motivation factor certainly goes their way. The Chiefs, it's again really, really tough to get yourself up again for a third. I mean, they've lost the season opener. They lost last year to Detroit. A team that's a more physical nature of team, I think, is going to be more ready to play in week one. So that's what I come across on the Ravens. But there's this other thing I will always say before I go to bet something before the game starts. And I like to name the name of the quarterback that I am taking if I bet a team, and say the name of the quarterback he is facing, and say the name of the stadium the game is being played in. So while I like the motivating factor for the fact I'm getting the Ravens and I'm getting them plus points or at plus money on the money line, which we will go on to that topic as well too. I'm getting them in that circumstance. That makes me feel good. But the idea that when I go to put my money down, or I kind of look at this, is that you need to be able to think about how you can justify if you lose that bet. And me saying to myself, if I lost on this game, that I bet that Lamar Jackson would go into Arrowhead and beat Patrick Mahomes, that does not give me a good feeling. But if I was to watch a quarter of that football game and just notice certain things in that game, or if there was to be a certain opportunity to present itself where, if this team scores here and then I can get this team plus this many points, if that happens, then I go to bets. I've always compared in-game betting on football to being like playing blackjack, where you get dealt the cards and then decide if you want to bet at any point. That's another thing I'm going to, kind of mention. So it was with the idea of plus money. Look, you see my percentage on that thumbnail that I posted in here. Last year, picking 5 games a week against the spread against other people, I was 1,280 seconds out of, I think it was in the tens of thousands or something. I don't know. It's irrelevant. Or it is kind of relevant. It just kind of says I was cashing money. I hit 55.7% of my bets. That's documented. That's why I posted it there. I wish I had something more for you, but that just gives an idea of some credibility, I would like to think. If you're betting sports at the minus 110 money line, which if you don't know what that money line means, you might want to reach out to me and we got to get you started from the ground up. But if you're betting 110 to win 100, to break even, that means you need to hit 52.4% of your bets. So the fact that I hit 55.7% of my bets on a 70-game sample size, it gives a little bit of credence to the fact that I might know what I'm talking about. Again, I'm not going to go into games we're going to pick yet. I'm just going to help you try to avoid them. So just betting on a game because it's on TV, if you don't have a strong feeling, I say wait until inside of the game to bet. Or I would also say that with all of the things we have available to us, because let's face it, most people's interest in this or before gambling was readily available was fantasy. And now if you don't have a player on your fantasy team and you wish you had that player on your fantasy team, well, how good do you think he's really going to do? You can look at their prop betting. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is one of my favorite parts about prop betting. You don't always have to bet over. So that way you don't have to sit there and complain that the fucking whole thing is rigged against your same game parlay. On that rant, look, it is hard enough to win one bet at a time. I am talking about that I did good at this last year, and I was wrong almost 45% of the time. Tough pill to swallow to say you're good enough that you deserved money, but you're wrong 45% of the time. Baseball players can totally relate with that, where, again, the idea if you're good out of your job 3 out of 10 times, you can be considered a Hall of Famer. But we aren't all like this idea that it'll also play into the idea about how I don't believe that the games are rigged. The idea that most people just sitting on their couch in America, again, 39 years old now, I've met enough people, and I would say that most people are not very, very smart. So the idea that everybody knows who's going to win is fucking stupid. The idea that Vegas knows who's going to win is stupid. Yes, Some games, things look a little bit crazy, but with the amount of games that are played and for how far off these numbers are in some cases, or just the number of volume where things don't come into play, it's just all a matter of circumstance. I was just looking up this stat before I came on to here. It is 69% of NFL games are decided by within, or at one point in time in the fourth quarter, a one possession game. It is not so crazy. It's not that hard to even guess what the spread is of an NFL game. And in fact, if it's off from what your guesses are, if you know what you're doing, it's obviously an opportunity to get some, to exploit it. The NFL, you look at it as a couple of ways of outlines of as far as, are the two teams about equal? Is this a full field goal game? If it's not a full field goal game, your next question are these teams two full touchdown apart from each other? And then the next phase of things is this double digits or shit? Are we over 2 touchdowns? So 4 phases of spreads on there. In between all of those, there's not a whole lot that separate them. You just want to get as much as possible. But 69% of these games are going to be decided or going to be within one score in the fourth quarter. So from that point, what happens, which again, as I was mentioning with the idea of the in-game betting, is that jumping in the fourth quarter and having only one quarter to deal with, where you get an idea of how the game can potentially play out and you've watched 3 quarters of that game, is so much better than if you don't have any strong conviction going into the game than just betting it just cause. So that will help you out there. Again, also, if you are going to take a team as an underdog, you almost need to just not even just consider taking the points and just take them on the money line. If you make it that you don't have to win even 50-50, if you flip the coin in your favor, then I say that that's an advantage that you always need to take. Everybody, there's a lot of this that I'm going to say is going to be do what I say, not what I do, because I need to actually watch this for my own advice. The parlay, as sexy as it may be, is a great way to hemorrhage money, okay? We all love the idea of, ooh, I'm going to throw down $20, and if all these underdogs and these touchdowns and props hit, I'm going to win 10,000. It's a fucking gambler's pipe dream. But let me tell you something, you will probably lose way more than $10,000 before you win one of those. Or it actually might even be worse. If you do win one of those, you're definitely going to lose 10,000 back throughout some point in the course of your life. Isolate things down to, as I've gone on to, it's super boring. And, again, if you're not always having to bet, which sucks if you like the action, it is what it is. But I started learning sometime during the middle of last season that if I wanted to make a couple $100 betting, I just had to find one game to put a couple $100 on. So I like the idea of isolating out some of those, what I call nukes. That's what I'll be playing, and that's what I'll be telling you about throughout the year. If I have any nukes, I will be issuing out my launch codes, as I call them, because that's when I like to go. I'll just be upfront here. I'm a $50 bettor for the most part, and as a $50 bettor, the most I will ever bet on something is like 500, and that might happen a couple times. And I will kind of give you one of those examples right now to kind of piggyback of my little in-gaming story that I had. There is a little structure and flow to this. If you do watch this and make it through to here, God bless you. You will be rewarded if you can process anything or take in any information I'm giving you, which you can always reach out and ask me more specifically. I'll be happy to tell you. But one game that stood out to me last year about how you can be ahead of the computer in a sense is it was a Thursday night game between the New England Patriots and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the Patriots, god-awful team last year, probably going to be a god-awful team this year. But that's the thing. We know exactly how bad they are just yet. Most likely pretty bad. But there'll be a little bit of adjustments through some teams because they are considered to be so bad. We'll see how bad they really end up being throughout. But they were facing the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Mitch Trubisky was starting at quarterback. I believe the Steelers were like a 7-point favorites going into the game. And I don't forget if it was even Bailey Zappi or if it was Mac Jones playing for the Patriots last year, but an abysmal offense, short week on the road. Somehow it worked out where I wasn't even watching the beginning of the game, but the Patriots were up 7-3 and had the ball, and they were still underdogs, both getting points, and they were still underdogs. Obviously, if you're underdogs getting points, you're still plus money on the money line. And I was sitting there and looking at it, and I was thinking, it makes total sense because the computer programs that make these spreads are just kind of like those win probability things you see on ESPN during baseball season, where you get the set of circumstances and then you find out what your chances are, from there. I believe how these things work, and this is just my speculation, and I can be wrong, but I'll tell you why I believe I'm right, is they analyze most games with that pre-spread script and how they play out. Now, that's probably the way that having a team that's was favored by 7.5 points that is down 7-3 and does not have the ball, that 7.5 point underdog up 4 with the ball is probably usually still a big time underdog, or at least not a big time underdog, but still is not favored to win that game. But I don't believe that the computer takes into account that Mitch Trubisky is the quarterback that's on the other side of that. And I believe that the Patriots were at midfield at this point, even so they were already pretty close to field goal range, where I am looking at the idea that in what planet would I ever take Mitch Trubisky down points, down a touchdown, to be favored to win the game? And that was the way I look at this. And then sure enough, the only reason why I felt I was right about this one, because as soon as I had the opportunity to, I bet it. Moments after I bet it, I am not saying I'm the one that moved the line. I am saying that a bunch of other people that thought the way that I did all bet this at the exact same moment, because pretty soon that them being favored was not an option. But I got down the most of my money on what I thought was the best of it to get the best of it. And that's really kind of the way you can do this. You got to be prepared to have some losing weeks. There's going to be 1 week every NFL season that you're probably not even going to win a fucking bet. It's going to happen. Money management's biggest thing. You can't be, you should not be able to go broke in a week. That's just the way I should look at it. Try and create opportunities to win things. Also mixing some things in the futures on there, but just find the games that are actually focus in on a couple things, whether it be a team you bet on or bet against, whether it be players you follow, however it works. Just focus on them and just hammer them away. And if you have to, sprinkle a couple bucks on some cheap parlays if that gets you through your night. But I just don't recommend it. It's a great way to lose money, or to, I think, win money too easily, which will sometimes lead you to lose more money down the road on that one. Trying to keep it fairly simple, but I would say that I used to say there's no reason to ever lay more than a touchdown in the NFL. I think I have to amend that rule now, because scoring in the NFL is just so much different than it used to be, and I'll explain why. The idea that is a team a full touchdown better, you're always looking at it is that a team up 2 touchdowns doesn't care about giving up what we call that backdoor touchdown. So the idea of 6.5, 7, and 7.5, those used to be very, very, very important numbers in football. They kind of have become irrelevant now, and I'll explain why. The number that you really care about now is 6.5 and 8.5, or you care about the other end of those numbers, because once upon a time, back before we ran this sport with calculators, if you were down by 14 points, you kicked an extra points if you scored a touchdown, and you were down 7 points. Now, I understand the math on this one, and this is just all fuel for the fire for people to assume that the NFL is rigged against them, which, again, I do not believe it is, and we can always argue that one. And I'm sure that there'll be some people providing some wonderful, wonderful content that is going to tell us why it is on a week-to-week basis. And I'm probably going to use those people and anything I see as segments on this upcoming NFL season as saying why I think that person is a fucking idiot, okay? Because I've been on the right side and the wrong side of a bunch of shady shit in this league, and it just so happens to be. There are people, if the games were fixed, there wouldn't be reasons why sportsbooks tell certain people they cannot bet, okay? And as it works out is that if you book enough action on enough games, eventually you're going to get it. And if you're not going to get it off the sports, the casinos find another way to get it from you. But for anyone that says that all the bright lights in Vegas are all built up by the sports book, I will just tell you that Nevada issues out their annual gambling report winnings every year. And basically every sports book in Nevada can be replaced by one bank of penny slot machines very, very easily. It accounts for a very, very small percentage of things. And the other books like FanDuel and DraftKings and all of them, they just have a really good model of that. The people that win too much, they just don't bet that much. They don't really mind for the amount of action that I give them and the little that I take home from them. I'm sure that they're just fine, just hoping for me just to have that one bottomless pitfall. But the numbers 6.5 or the number 7 doesn't mean as much anymore now, because if a team is down by 2 touchdowns, instead of taking that extra points, they're going to now go for 2. which is going to mean that the game is going to either land on 8 or land on 6. So those are kind of your new key numbers right now. So to really feel good about that backdoor touchdown, you want to be not laying more than 5.5 points, I guess, because there's a very, very good chance that you could give up a touchdown at the end. That team goes for 2 with a very, very little time left. And suddenly a game that you should have probably won in hand, you only won by 6 points. And if you were laying 6.5, which used to mean that you were just under getting, giving less than a touchdown, which used to sound great, now you're a loser. And I have to wonder how this affects, because there was always a very good betting method called the Stanford Wong teaser. And the Stanford Wong teaser is the idea that an NFL teaser, which if you're not aware of this one, it might not be the show for you, is when you can use it as a parlay in a way where you can pick 2 or more games and you can move the line 6 points in either direction. So if you had a team that was plus 2 points, you could then make them plus 8 points. And if you had a team that was minus 7 points, you can make them minus 1 point. Parlay the two of those together, and the odds are going to pay at minus 120, which means you have to hit both of those bets. And if you bet 12, you would win 10. That sounds a little bit much, but that used to be an amazing, amazing combination and almost a proven winner year over year, to the point that used to be like an even money offering, and they had to move the odds to the minus 120. So whenever I see that they have to move the odds on something, that tells me that it's obviously a winner, because they have to use against that. Every 5 cents on a money line. So if you see the difference between plus 100, which is even, to minus 105, that is basically 1.2% that is going in the favor of the house. Because again, if you were at a 52.4% break-even margin on a minus 110, just doing a little bit of math there, which if you are doing NFL betting, I should hope that you know a little bit of math. And I want to say thank you for the people that are watching here. If you're new to this, appreciate you joining along. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm just talking about not the things of how I'm going to make money necessarily, but ways to avoid losing money. But those key numbers are the way to go there. And that's kind of what I like of mentioning in-game betting. Always look for reasons to take points if they'll give them to you in this league, and always look to get plus money if you can. One good thing I would say about in-game betting is the idea that, as we mentioned, 69% of NFL games are going to be at less than one possession or less in the fourth quarter. So over 2/3 of them. If a team is an underdog and goes down 14-0, you have to look at this on a case-by-case scenario. Always ask yourself when watching in-game betting, am I betting a team that can still move the ball? Because a team that can still move the ball, if they're getting blown out in the first half, is going to be able to make up a bunch of garbage points in the second half. And that's another thing to consider too. Don't just look at final scores when the season moves along, because you're going to start seeing some games that maybe were 34-27 that you're going to think, oh, wow, that was only a 1-touchdown game. But if you actually pay attention to that game, it was probably like 34-7 at one point, and the other team just kind of padded on and made it look good. So always consider those things. This is going to be one that I'm going to tell you as a moneymaker. Right now, everyone has week 1 betting lines that are out there. They're all out there right now. You can also see what week 2 betting lines are right now. I recommend taking a shot of the week 2 betting lines right now, and then wait for the week 1 games to be completed. And when the week 2 betting lines are announced, I want you to see which ones have moved the most, because some team is going to come out and they're going to lay a fucking turd on Sunday. And we're going to go, oh, that team's not very good. And they may have been a team that was plus a field goal, and all of a sudden they're going to be like plus 5.5 points. And that is silly. You just got 2.5 free points in your pocket, because week 1 is only 1 week. There's 17 games that a team plays now. Everyone's going to have one bad one. Sometimes it is week 1. The overreaction to week from week is always going to be in your favor, because no team is ever as good as they looked. The best team is never you know what I mean? Teams are never as good as their best game and never as bad as their worst. So keep that in mind on both sides, because some team is going to look way better than they normally did. And in all reality, I would caution anybody from thinking that they know jack shit about the NFL for about 6 weeks, because if you're, everyone's been waiting for the NFL to return, but I just remember year over year, all I say is, oh my God, it looks like they didn't practice all off season, which is amazing to me. Again, that I listen to people on certain other networks that are very, very reputable, who just don't think it's a big deal that guys didn't practice all offseason, that you can just show up and just run onto an NFL field, which is like the biggest slap in the face to the football that, I mean, I played up to the JV level, and the amount of that we just basically lived on the football program as much as we possibly could. The idea that at the professional level, just because guys can lift weights and show up and play this at a high level, I disagree with. And I think that most people that do follow would disagree with. But I also just get the rule changes. Kickoffs, we don't know what those are going to look like, but I think we could be leading to more points again, because we're not just going to be giving teams the ball at the 25-yard line in a league where open field tackling is at an all-time worst. And we're now adding open field tackling to there, and also making it where hip drop tackling, which is kind of the only way that if you're trying to tackle a guy in the open field you can do to minimize targeting, is going to be a penalty. Who knows what we're going to have, which also, we're going to get to the point that if kickoff returns become a major thing and the way that field goal kicking is going, we're going to start having this whole scenario where teams are just going to stop punting, or there's going to be very, very limited punting going on. And whether teams convert or whether they give up when the field positions are flipped, so I think it opens up the opportunity for more scoring. So I would not be shocked if points are on the rise. That might be something that you can get ahead of. But again, I'm not going to sit here and say I know much about the league right now, but I believe I'll be able to tell you more as we get going. I would just say that if you have a strong feeling on a team, then give it a shot this week, but watch very, very closely and follow the line of scrimmage and look for chances to get in on that in game. I think that that's a better way to go about it. But let's face it, we're all just going to be a bunch of kids in the candy store. We're going to be firing bets left and right. I will be broadcasting, whether it be through live streams or just making some content to have available for everybody for my trip from San Francisco. I probably am going to be able to go live from the Oakland Coliseum, which should be fun. I'll try to, hopefully they don't have too much music playing, so I think I could get copyrighted for that. But I'm going to have to see what it's like to watch the NFL season opener on the West Coast, where I'm going to watch an NFL football game on a Thursday afternoon at 5:30. I mean, with the way that some makeup games have gone over the past couple of years, it's not unprecedented, but it's just going to feel weird that a primetime game at that hour. And then next week, I have arrangements to have on a guest, a gentleman from X or Twitter, whatever we call it. I'll reveal more details about that because I'm not sure what he's comfortable saying or not saying. But we are going to be discussing the idea of what it's better to be a West Coast sports fan or an East Coast sports fan, as far as which ones are better to watch. So I gave you a little something to process. That was just me just free floating and firing for a little bit of ways that I can help you not necessarily win money, but maybe just not lose quite as much money. So for the people that were tuning into the show, I appreciate you. Drop a comment and a like. And if you weren't subscribing, please do already. Go back and watch everything. And I have been, from a betting perspective too, as I left on a note somewhere on my page, I mentioned that the Dodgers, I was going to be betting every game during the month of August for a fixed unit amount. I didn't do the math on how much I won, but I know the Dodgers went 19-8, which was not as good as I expected, but it was more wins than losses, which meant more money in my pocket and less money in the evil bookies. And that's what I'm going to look to try to help you do throughout the course of the NFL season. Not promising much, but again, I can show you that I'm a 55.7% winner. That's the handle on DraftKings. Like I said, if you want to invite me into your degenerate family, or if you want to sign up for the $50 micro contest like I did this year, and you want to get a little side action about who does better, I'm always appreciative for a challenge. So everybody, thank you for tuning in, and I'll be live from Oakland at some point in time.